And now I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Sarah Roberts of the New Zealand Defence Force, who will describe the successful integration of RSA Support Services within the New Zealand Defence Force Command, Health and Family Support Organisations in Burnham Camp. The Burnham Hub is a leading example how new thinking, partnerships and support offers can connect what is readily available through the RSA network with those currently serving and their families. This is the first time RSA support has been available in this way, operating directly out of a New Zealand Defence Force facility, and is proving a model for further engagement across New Zealand. Please give Sarah a warm welcome.
Tēnā koutou katoa, good morning. Thank you, firstly, very much for inviting myself and Rebecca Maddaford this morning to come and share what is really Rebecca and Brian Mannix's brainchild and success story. Unfortunately, Rebecca couldn't be here, so you've got rather a poor replacement in me. But I just want to give a brief overview of really how it came about and the benefits from our point of view for our soldiers. So approximately 5 years ago, Rebecca was re-employed in the New Zealand Defence Force. We had been nurses together in East Timor, but specifically this time round to look after the injured, wounded and ill for Army in Burnham. There was a cluster and it was recognised that they would have quite comprehensive care needs and ongoing care needs, and that would be quite taxing to the current health delivery system that was there. So Rebecca was stood up and works for Army General Staff. One of her first taskings was to ring me up and say, "Sister," we call each other sister because we're nurses, who are the stakeholders? Who can provide help and support to our soldiers that are predominantly injured at that stage she was working with? So we made a list, and on the bottom, much to our embarrassment now to admit, I said, "Oh, we should put RSA. We don't really know what they do, but we'll put them there." And so Rebecca set about establishing a relationship with Brian in Christchurch and hasn't looked back. Quite quickly, I started hearing words like consistent, available and continuity of care, that when she rang Brian, he would answer the phone, that it didn't really matter whether the person was injured, was ill, whether it was their family members or their children. If they needed help, Brian would look at problem solving, the RSA would look at problem solving. So the last point, the RSA went on the checklist. So every person Rebecca started seeing, she would inform them that the RSA was available to them. We don't refer, that has legal connotations, but we would inform them and encourage them. Look, trot along, see the RSA, they may be able to help you, particularly if the person didn't fall under ACC or AEP or wasn't a veteran, then sometimes there were not a lot of funding options for them. So what did Brian, what did the support services, what did they provide for our soldiers? Basically, they filled the gaps. As I've just said, if our soldiers didn't come under VANS, they didn't come under ACC or AEP, then there would be funding gaps. So they were able to go to Brian and talk to him, tell them about their case, and Brian could help and fund and problem solve. Not always money, sometimes he would put them in contacts with other organisations that could help. Financial hardship was a common theme amongst our, I guess, all age groups, particularly young with family who may be moving camps or their work wasn't able to promote them so that they would sort of be fixed in a wage bracket because of illness or injury, and this would end up resulting in hardship for their children. Counselling was another big area. People would leave the NZDF and then sit down and go, actually, I kind of need help. Again, ACC may not cover it, they may not be a veteran. Brian would be able to help and organise that. Child support, as I've mentioned. Legal support for those of us who've ever tried to navigate or ask for a redress on an ACC ruling. It can be really difficult. Or even inter-district flows with a DHB. If you want a second opinion and you're from a small DHB and you want to get a specialist outside your area, Brian and Rebecca were able to help in that area. Domestic violence. We had a case not very long ago where an individual was unsafe in their home with their partner, and there wasn't the command relationship that they felt that they could go and say to command, I need help. They needed moving very quickly, so Brian was able to organise that. And even though it wasn't in his area, in fact it was across the Cook Strait from Christchurch, he was able to reach out and make that happen with the RSA Support Service people up here in the North Island. Navigating the system. It's hard enough when you're a health provider to try and figure out where DHBs start and stop, where veterans start and stop, ACC, AEP. If you have private insurance, where does that start and stop? So they're a listening ear to sit down and actually help navigate through. In terms of collaborative work, which obviously Rebecca and Brian were doing, we often talk about people being a gateway, and this is what Brian became, or the RSA support people. They would listen and often feed back to us and say, actually you've sent somebody along with twisted knee, but actually they're disclosing other things. So they could feed that back to us, and then we could look at helping them or provide the support and the services that they need. So that gateway function, while a little abstract, is incredibly important in collaborative care and support to people, and we really value that. So, things have been going along really well. And then about 1.5 years ago, I think if my memory serves me right, which was fantastic, the NZDF stood up some new positions, recovery coordinators, social workers and SAPRAs, who deal with the abuse and sexual abuse within the Defence Force. So this was fantastic. Rebecca and I thought, phew, we can sit back. We can go and have a cup of tea and relax. About 6 months along with our new people coming in who were doing a fantastic job, within a week Rebecca and I had a similar experience that one of the new staff said to Rebecca, what do you mean inform someone of the RSA? I don't even know who they are. And then I'd had a similar experience where someone up here in the North Island said to me, VANS, why would I refer that person to VANS? So Rebecca and I decided that actually we needed to clutch up our new people and introduce our allied support staff to the RSA support staff and let them know what a good job and what resources you had. So I think Rebecca bundled all the Burnham people into the car, drove around to the RSA with muffins and had a meeting with Brian. And from there they decided that actually it would be really beneficial to bring Brian inside the wire, or to bring somebody from that support service area inside the wire. Because although we know that young people like to be attached to those electronic things, there's a real ethos in the military that they also like face-to-face. They like to sit down and talk to someone. And if I had a penny for every time a soldier or a sailor or an air personnel said to me, I just want 5 minutes, and an hour and a half later, they just want to be heard, they want to talk. So they decided, with the support of the commanding officer down in Burnham and the support of the community hub, that there would be a physical location for Brian to come in 1 day a week for a couple of hours and actually physically be in camp, so that when the social workers or the doctors or the commanding officers said, actually, I think you might have some benefit from talking to someone from the support services in the RSA, they know a time and date. They don't have to leave the camp. It's incredibly convenient. They can just whip along, drop in or make an appointment. The feedback that I got was having the opportunity to meet face-to-face was huge for our soldiers. And that was the first thing Rebecca said to me. I said, what kind of feedback will I give? That was the first thing. The second thing was, in spite and not being too cheeky, sometimes there might be a generation gap. She said to me, they listen and they get it. The young soldier doesn't have to be re-traumatised by trying to explain military abbreviations or jargons or the CO relationship. These guys just get it. They can sit down and listen. So this was a really important step. By now, it's not just the injured. It's the ill, it's those who are wounded, and it has morphed into providing a lot of support for families and children and spouses, because they're often very hard to fund from within Defence. So this is a really big gap that the RSA is filling for us, and we're hugely appreciative. Now, rather cheekily, I said to Rebecca, where to from now? What advice would you like to give? And it was pretty simple. Replicate across the bases and camps, if possible. The second point, standardised practice, and I will own that that is a little bit cheeky because sometimes we struggle to do that inside Defence, but if there was a standardised practice, you know, if you had a form, it's the same throughout the country. Remembering today that many of our soldiers and naval personnel, air personnel are very mobile through camps, so if the support forms and things look the same everywhere, it's much easier for them. Some work for us, and I guess when you liaise with Defence Force, is orientation for NZDF health and wellness staff that includes a working knowledge of the RSA. We need to move our mindset that you just don't go there for a beer, that actually you can offer a huge amount. It has staggered Rebecca and I constantly, or me personally over the last 2 years, what you can provide and how willing you are to do it if we just put our hands up and reach out, and how you can cross barriers that we may struggle to. You know, you don't have to be loyal to a DHB. If ACC can't help, you can look at private, you can mediate, you can move and not be held up by funding streams. Another area, and I guess it's a conversation, a little future focused, is to perhaps have a conversation with the NZDF about endorsing the RSA Support Services for this kind of activity. Overseas, our allies, the Canadians, the British and the American particularly, I have to be honest, I'm not too sure about the Australians, their Defence Force will actually endorse their people who come in from outside organisations, almost like a preferred provider. And also equally, that may mean that your support providing staff can participate in our civilian orientation days, just so that you get to know people, where we're up to with our philosophies, and it just makes it easier to talk to our soldiers, our naval people and our air personnel. So in a nutshell, that's the hub. It was kind of born out of necessity. I know certainly, and I'm not too sure if Mark Compain's up there, I think Rebecca and Brian are absolutely firing through, I don't have the statistics, but referrals to head office probably on a weekly basis. It's been hugely successful. When I've been on Invictus with our injured, wounded and ill, I hear a lot of positive feedback, and I can almost start to tell those that are linked in with their RSA support people. They just tend to feel more confident. They've got someone outside the wire who gets them, who they can talk to, and if they get pushed back with funding or issues, they know that there's someone that they can go to. So thank you very much, and yeah, keep up the good work, and thank you for the opportunity to share this morning. Thank you.